Welcome back to the Clayball podcast, and more importantly, football is so back. Every Sunday, millions of people are going to be watching. Stadiums are packed. Red Zone is on. Fantasy football is exciting, and for a lot of us, this is one of the best times of the year. Today's episode is going to be a lot of football, but, and I say but, before all the people who aren't sports fans tune out. We're going to have a lot of fun, but we also are going to talk about an interesting question that I have always had surrounding football on Sundays, especially when considering the amount of Christian athletes there are who play in the NFL. Imagine you're a rookie in the NFL. You've worked your whole life for this moment. You've sacrificed for it. You've prayed for it. You finally hear your name called. You make the team, and Sunday arrives. Millions of people are watching. You're about to run onto the field, for the first time in your career. But at the exact same time that you're doing this, churches across the country are getting to worship the Lord, the same Lord that you've given your life to when you were young. What happens next? How should you feel? How should you go about the situation? What should be your priority? Should you feel guilty? Is it okay? This is exactly what I want to talk about today, the Sunday dilemma. You saw the title, that's the title. Is playing football on Sunday simply part of the job? Is something spiritually being sacrificed? Does pregame chapel replace church? What about doctors, nurses, firefighters, police officers, and everyone else who has to work on Sunday? And maybe the real question isn't just about Sunday itself. Maybe the real question is what has our priority. But first, let's have some fun. Football is back, like I said. I have predictions from for every single team. Records, maybe not every. I didn't do it. Actually, I simulated. I did one of those simulator things where you pick every single game for the year. And this is what happened. And I'm going to explain to you the playoff standings I believe are going to happen in the AFC as well as the NFC. I'm going to talk about every single NFL team, at least briefly. We'll see what happens, but here we go. Let's start in the AFC. I predict the first seed is going to be the Buffalo Bills. Now, when I did this simulator thing, I have them at 13-4. I believe the Bills are still going to be on top of the AFC. They're going to be one of the best teams in the AFC like they were last season. They're going to be a team that goes 13-4. They're going to be a team with Josh Allen, and their whole team is still complete. And now they just have, they have the new coaching surrounding it. And I think the Bills are going to be as good as they've ever been in the regular season. We'll see what playoffs look like as we go on. The second seed I have, and actually same record as the Bills, is the Denver Broncos. Somehow, also, if I have two teams that have the same record as another one, like basically the only reason I seeded them the way they are is because that's what the simulator had for tiebreakers. And so the Broncos I also have at 13-4. I am a believer, big-time believer. I think the Broncos are going to be phenomenal. They were literally a Bo Nix injury away from basically making the Super Bowl, more than likely. And I really look forward to see what this Broncos team has in comparison to last season. They added Jalen Waddle, and they really didn't lose much. And we're going to see what the Broncos do this season. I think they're going to be as good as they were last year. Them and the Bills are probably going to be the top two teams in the AFC. That's how I see it. They're going to be fighting for that one seed. We'll see what happens. Third seed that I have, and actually I have three teams at 12-5 here for the AFC. The Jaguars are going to, I see them winning their division, sneaking into that 3 seed or 4 seed. They're going to be, again, as good as they were last year. And this Jaguars team is actually, they're very good. They're a very good team. They're a team that I thought was going to be an underdog last season. And as they got to the playoffs, it was just shown that they weren't experienced enough. And because of that, now they have some experience. I think they're going to do a little bit better come playoff time. They're going to be still good in the regular season. I think they're going to be better than they were last year. I look forward to seeing exactly what this Jaguars team looks like. I really like Trevor Lawrence. I think they're going to be really good. And it's going to be fun to watch. The biggest thing that happened with this Jaguars team is losing Travis Etienne. And I do think that's going to hurt, but they will be, I think, totally fine. I don't think that's going to kill them completely. Big notable moves. So The next team that I have at 12-5 and also again winning their division is the Cincinnati Bengals. I believe that the Bengals are going to be really, really good. They didn't add too much except for Dexter Lawrence. That was the big one that they added. I also think, what's his name? Boye Mafe, Seahawks edge rusher, signed with them as well. They also just added a couple offensive linemen. I think this Bengals team is going to be very good, assuming they can stay healthy. It's Burrow, it's Chase, it's Higgins, it's Chase Brown. It's all these different guys, right? This Bengals team, without injuries, is one of the best teams in the league. We always forget that they literally were in the Super Bowl in 2021? Like, this team is good. This team is going to be good, assuming they are able to stay healthy. That's a big question mark for them. I think they come back, win the division. The next 12-5 team I have is the Chargers. I think the Chargers are going to be a pretty legit team this year, as they have been. I have them sneaking in as the 5 seed, just behind the Broncos, and maybe that's some bias, maybe not, but I really do see the Chargers as a real threat to be good. I look forward to seeing exactly what they do. I mean, they added David Njoku, which really upgrades their tight end position. They added they re-signed a bunch of guys basically. And then, they're basically running it back, and I do believe Justin Herbert is still a great quarterback who's going to lead this Chargers team to a very good regular season. It hurts to say, but it's going to happen. My number 6 seed I have is the Baltimore Ravens at 11-6. I think the Ravens are going to be very good, as they always have been. I think they're going to start the year off hot with their schedule, and then maybe they'll slow it down a little bit, because that's usually what happens. Lamar Jackson is still one of the best quarterbacks in the league. They still have one of the best teams in the league in general, and I do see the Ravens as going 11-6, getting second in their division, but sneaking into the 6th seed for this AFC team. And now you guys are probably wondering, there are a lot of teams that I have not mentioned, and there's only 1 seed left, right? You think about the Patriots, Texans, Chiefs, the Steelers with Aaron Rodgers, the Colts, who were hot last season. There's a bunch of teams within this AFC that I could see making the playoffs, and so don't take this like crazy, but I still think the only logical way to go about this is putting the Patriots back in the playoffs as the 7 seed. I don't think the Patriots are as good as we think they were last season. I was never someone who looked at the Patriots, watching them all of last season, and be like, that's a really good team. I know they made the Super Bowl, I know, but we all talk about their easy schedule. I'm really curious to see what happens this season with a much harder schedule. It's not like the hardest schedule in the world, but it's still going to be harder than it was last season. I'm really curious to see what Drake May does, but I don't see them really being better than the Bills, the Broncos, the Jaguars, the Bengals, assuming all those teams are healthy. I don't think they're better. I don't. I know they made the Super Bowl, like I said. I don't think they're better than half all those teams that we were talking about, but I think it'd be very disrespectful to not put them in the playoffs after making the Super Bowl last season. So that obviously leaves the rest of the teams, right, in the AFC. The Texans, I have at 10-7, barely missing the playoffs. They're not a bad team, and it wouldn't surprise me if they make the playoffs. I wouldn't be like, what? That's a crazy prediction. But I think they are just a tad not as good as some of those other teams we mentioned, and so for that, I had them at 10-7. I also have the Chiefs, which is the other surprise that you guys are going to have, at 10-7. Yes, Mahomes is back. The question is, how good is he going to look right away? But I really don't think the Chiefs got much better this offseason. Yes, they added Kenneth Walker, but outside of Kenneth Walker, they lost their entire secondary on defense. Their defense is not going to be good. It's just not. I don't see them being good at all. And because of that, it's hard for me to believe in a stacked AFC conference. The Chiefs are, I don't see them. And again, if they make the playoffs, obviously it's because of Mahomes and Andy Reid. We know that. Which is why I have them at 10-7 as is. If you take either of those pieces away, I don't think the Chiefs are going to be, even nearly as good. But the fact that they have Mahomes, you can't deny them. I have them at 10-7. If they sneak into the playoffs, great. If they don't, not surprised either. And then that leaves basically, it goes from Texans, Chiefs, trying to fight in for that playoff spot to now a big gap between the next teams. The Colts was a big team that I actually had at 7-10, which would be the next team up. And it's really just because of how hard they fell off last season. How hard Daniel Jones fell off. I know he got hurt, but like he got hurt within them falling off, right? They started off the season, 8-0? They looked like the best team in the league for no reason, and they got brought back to reality. I think that reality is going to stick with the Colts. I think the Daniel Jones show was a little bit of a fluke. And then they traded away Michael Pittman. They added Keenan Allen, sure, but I think Pittman's a better player right now. Look forward to seeing what this Colts team has. I don't see them as a playoff team. I think I have them at 7-10. The Raiders are the next team. I have them at 6-11. That's really just saying that they're not going to start very well, and then Mendoza's going to come in and then he'll get a few wins just to give him some hope. I really like Fernando Mendoza. I talked about him on my last podcast, 2 podcast episodes ago. Sports Chaos and Russell Westbrook was the title of that one. Go check that one out. Just a bunch of sports yap. I really like Fernando Mendoza. I think he's going to be a very good quarterback in this league. I'm not going to go all the way and say he's going to be like Tom Brady, but I do think that he's going to be a good quarterback in this league. But I think the Ashton Genty injury hurts them. But as the season goes on, I'm thinking they're going to put in Mendoza later in the year, and then Genty's going to be back, and they're going to be okay, and they'll show that they actually have some real talent on this roster, proving something towards the end of the year. I think they'll be better next year. This year's just not it for them. The Steelers, another team that could be surprising to some people. I have them at 6-11 as well. I don't think Aaron Rodgers is the guy he used to. Well, he's not. He's not the guy he used to be. Aaron Rodgers is not that guy anymore. Yes, they got Pittman in the trade with the Colts. They have DK Metcalf as well. It's a solid offense. The defense is intriguing. I think I talked about them in my first ever episode, the Welcome to Clayball episode. Go check that one out as well. I don't think, after looking at this roster, time has gone on. I look at this roster now and I'm just like, this team just isn't, they're just not that good. I don't see them being as good as maybe Steelers fans will hope. And I think this is going to be one of the worst Steelers teams we've seen in a very long time. And then that leaves the last 4 teams, which I think are just at the bottom of the pack. The Titans, who I have at 4-13. I just see them as, Cam Ward is young and the rest of the team just isn't good enough. And so I don't see them really making a real push, especially with how stacked the NFL is right now. The Jets, I have them at 3-14, and really those only wins that they have were maybe the Cardinals and the Dolphins. Teams like that. The Jets aren't going to be good. They really, I think, significantly improved their defense. But I don't think it's good enough. I really don't think it's good enough. And I don't think Geno Smith is going to be that Pro Bowler that we once saw, if you want to call it that. Pro Bowl's gone, by the way. That's a whole different discussion. But that'll be in a different episode later. The Browns, the last 2 teams we're talking about, the Browns, I have them at 3-14 as well. Most of that is emotion. I don't like Deshaun Watson for a lot of reasons. And those reasons I don't really have to say. And I don't believe the team surrounding him is good enough. They literally just traded Myles Garrett. They are rebuilding. That's what they're doing. Once they're able to get out of the Deshaun Watson contract and maybe shift to Shedeur Sanders, they're not going to be good. I'm sorry. Browns fans, you're not going to be happy with me. Browns are not going to be good this year. I don't look forward to watching them either because of their QB situation. But yes, they got Jared Verse for Myles Garrett, but Jared Verse is a downgrade, and they weren't good last year, and so there's just no way. And then finally, this is going to be my hot take of the AFC. I know it's funny. The Dolphins, the Miami Dolphins. I have them going 0-17. I don't think they're going to win a single game. In fact, I look at this Dolphins team, and I think it could go down as the worst team in the NFL, maybe one of the worst teams we've ever seen. Malik Willis, Quinn Ewers, and then got Cam Miller, and like you don't have a good. Malik Willis is not a starting quarterback in this league. He's not. Your only good piece that I like on this team, the only one in their starting lineup is Devon Achane. I add him to my fantasy team because I think he's going to be the only one who gets the ball. Malik Washington's fine, but again, these guys just aren't. They're not it's just not good at all. It's just bad. This Dolphins team is going to be all-time bad. I don't see them winning any game, no matter who they play. I know they play the Jets twice. Maybe they sneak one from the Jets. I think they play the Cardinals as well, so maybe they sneak one from the Cardinals. But no, I think the Cardinals are by far the worst team in the league, and because of that, they're going to get the one seed. The one seed, the first overall draft pick. Go get a quarterback. Reset. I'm shocked A-Chain re-signed there. Yeah, I don't look forward to this team. I don't look forward to this team. I have them as 0-17. They're not winning a game this year. They're that bad. Now let's move on to the NFC. This is where we're going to get some controversy. And actually, as I was making this simulator thing, I was basically fighting with myself with how the standings turned out. First seed, and I think this is going to be the first seed for most people, is the LA Rams. This Rams team is disgusting. This Rams team is going to be all-time good. I genuinely believe that. Stafford was an MVP last year. You have Puka and Devontae Adams and a phenomenal defense with Aaron Donald maybe coming back, which is insane to think about. They just traded for Myles Garrett. They just traded for was it Trent McDuffie, I think. This Rams team is going to be phenomenal. Like I don't see a world where the Rams are bad. Unless they get hurt. That's the only option. But they literally added the best defensive player in the league to their roster. How on earth will they not be good? I have them at 15-2. I think that's how good they're going to be. I think they're going to be dominating the entire year. The second seed I have, and this is where it gets controversial, I am a big fan of the Carolina Panthers. I have them as the 2 seed. I put them at 13-4. The Panthers are going to be a phenomenal team this year. I really like Bryce Young. I know he's got his issues. I know the Panthers have their issues as is, but the Carolina Panthers are going to be really good. They signed A.J. Dillon, I think, to be their backup. He should be their backup. They signed a couple offensive linemen. This team, I know this team. Anyways, I'm going crazy because this Panthers team actually excites me. Like, I want to watch them, the way they look. Like Ted McMillan is going to be so much fun. And I genuinely believe that they had a lot of really fun games to watch last season, and I think they're going to be even better, and it's going to become more consistent. Playoffs is a different story. But in the regular season, I think the Panthers are going to tilt some heads and be like, dude, this team is really good. They look really good. I'm excited to watch this Panthers team. This could backfire on me heavy, but I have them as the 2 seed. The 3 seed, the Philadelphia Eagles. This isn't controversial. The Eagles are still good. They're always going to be good as long as they have Hurts, as long as they have a team that they have. This Philly team is going to be very good, for a very long time. They're always good. They got Saquon, they got Devontae, they got Dallas Goedert as their tight end. Their offensive line is still very good. Their defense is also very good. This team is going to be good. It's a fact. They've disappointed me a few times the last few years, and so that's why I have them at 12-5 as the 3 seed. But even then, 12-5 is really good. Look forward to watching this Eagles team. The next team, the winner of, this is shocking for a lot of people probably, the winner of the NFC North is the Chicago Bears. I think the Bears, as good as they were last season, are going to be even better. Well, maybe not even better, but they're going to be very good this season. They traded DJ Moore away. It's a Dunze, Burden, Khalif Raymond. I think the Bears are going to be very good. And it's funny because I have the Bears at 12-5. I also have the Packers at 12-5. Both of these teams are going to be very solid this season, which actually is going to give them, assuming all my predictions are correct with all the tiebreakers and stuff, they would end up playing each other in the first round, which is kind of fun. NFC North is going to be a lot of fun this year. Bears, Packers. We might get a big rivalry again this year. Look forward to it. The 6th seed I have. I know there's a lot of teams that could be in this playoff push. 6th seed I have is the Super Bowl champs, the Seattle Seahawks. At first, and this is how I've thought for a while, I don't think the Seahawks are going to be as good as they were last year. Sam Darnold is good, but they lost many pieces on the Seahawks team that is just going to make them not as good, right? They're not going to be as good as they were last year. It's open. That doesn't mean they can't make the playoffs. That doesn't mean Sam Darnold's not going to be great again. But I don't think they're going to be as good as they were. They still got one of the best receivers in the league. They added Rashid Shaheed. They have Cooper Kupp. It's a good offense. The defense is okay, but they lost multiple pieces and replaced them with young guys who aren't proven. And so I don't see the Seahawks being as good as they were last year. I have them in the playoffs because, again, same reason as the Patriots. It's disrespectful to not put the Super Bowl champs in the playoffs, especially when they have same quarterback, same basic core. I lost Kenneth Walker. That was their big one. Charbonnet is a little hurt, but Jadarian Price is a good, he looks really good. and I'm excited to see what he brings this season for the Seahawks. The 7 seed at 10. Oh, I didn't even say it. Seahawks are 10-7. They're tied with the 7 seed. They're also tied with another team that's out of the playoffs and only a game up of 2 more that are outside of that. The 7 seed I have in there, assuming all tiebreakers are correct, is the Dallas Cowboys. I think the Cowboys are going to be okay. I don't think they're going to be like garbage like a lot of people are saying. They still have Dak Prescott, who is a good quarterback. He's a very good quarterback. Yes, in my hot takes episode, I said that Dak Prescott was the most overrated player in NFL history. But other than that, this Cowboys team is still good. I'm not saying he's a terrible quarterback. Javonte Williams is a good running back. CeeDee Lamb, George Pickens, good receivers. Jake Ferguson, solid tight end, and their defense is not bad at all. Right, they added a few guys, and I look forward to seeing what this Cowboys team brings. Again, this isn't translating to playoffs. I don't think the Cowboys are going to go on a playoff run, but I think being 10-7, making the 7th seed is very realistic for them. Tying the Cowboys and Seahawks at 10-7, I also have the Washington Commanders. The Commanders were actually very disappointing for me last season. I had high hopes for them considering Jaden Daniels, assuming he was healthy. Jaden Daniels, I think, is going to have a bounce back year. He's not just going to fall off a cliff completely. I think this Commanders team is going to turn some heads. They're gonna look good, but they're not. I don't know if they're going to be good enough to really make a playoff push again. They added Stephon Diggs, which was kind of the biggest one. I'm looking at their roster right now, and I had no idea that Chris Paul was their left guard. CP3, welcome to the team. I think this team is going to be good. The Commanders, they have a good foundation for a team. I just, again, it's not going to translate to playoffs. I don't know if they'll make it even in, but I do think the Commanders will be good enough to at least be fighting for a playoff spot. Tampa Bay Buccaneers, I have at 9-8. And really, this isn't because I think the Bucs are bad. Like I actually do think that the Bucs are a good team. I think Baker's a great quarterback. But as I was looking at their schedule, I just don't think they're going to beat a lot of the teams that they're playing. I just don't think Baker Mayfield's going to go off like he did a few seasons ago. Bucs are going to make a fight for a playoff spot. If they make the playoffs, great, awesome. It wouldn't be shocking. But it also wouldn't surprise me if they go 9-8 and miss it again. We'll see what happens. Last year they only snuck in the playoffs because their division was not good. And that's not fun. So, actually, I'm so wrong. They didn't even make the playoffs. The Panthers did. But I think it's going to be basically similar season to last season. And then here's the surprise team that I have. And I didn't even put them in the playoffs. I wanted them to be in the playoffs. I was kind of hoping they would be after I did the simulation. They ended up going 9-8. I think the New York Giants are going to be a good team this year. I think Jackson Dart is going to be very good. I'm a fan of Jackson Dart. I'm a fan of Cam Scatterbo. I think this team is going to be fun to watch, but also a lot of fun when it comes to the wins. They look good. The Giants look really good. I look forward to seeing what they end up doing. They added a fullback, Patrick Card, I believe is his name. They added Odell, which is... again, it's fun. This team is fun. I look forward to seeing this team. I don't know what Juju's doing, but they've added a lot of pieces that just look kind of fun, and I think they could make a push for that playoff those last couple playoff spots. Had them out, unfortunately, but I look forward to watching this Giants team. It's going to be a team I'm watching every single week. Now here's where the gap comes, and there's going to be some people offended, and that's okay. The first team I have is the Detroit Lions at 7-10. They were disappointing for me last year, and I don't think they got any better. And for that simple reason, the Detroit Lions are going to miss the playoffs. They're not going to be in it. Going 7-10, and the team that ties them with the same record is probably the most controversial one, maybe in the entire episode, is the San Francisco 49ers. Maybe it's not controversial just because of all the injury issues, but I think the Niners are going to be not good at all. They added Deebo Samuel. George Kittle is probably going to be healthy come week 1 or 2. And I still don't think it's enough. I don't think Brock Purdy's good enough. I don't think the Niners are good enough to I don't think they have enough depth to maintain their injuries. They already lost Ricky Pearsall for the year. Guys, that's terrible. I want you to realize how terrible that is. Right? They added Mike Evans. They added Christian Kirk as well, but losing Ricky Pearsall's a big time blow. And I don't think you're going to count on Mike Evans, and I don't think you're going to count on Christian Kirk as well, considering all of their injury history. They're not going to be. They re-signed Drake Greenland. I can't get myself to back up the 49ers and them being good. I can't do it. I can't believe that I'm saying this, but the 49ers are going to be significantly out of the playoffs, even though they were fighting for that one seed last year. I have them at 7-10. Debate a wall. That's fine. Now the last four teams who I just think are the bottom of the pack. The New Orleans Saints. I just don't think they have enough. I don't think Spencer Rattler is going to be good enough. I don't even know if Tyler Show's not going to be good enough. Spencer Rattler's not going to be good enough. Whoever they end up starting. I know they added Travis Etienne, who I said they lost, who the Jaguars lost, but they still have Alvin Kamara, but they're just not good enough. I mean, let's just put it out there exactly how it's going to be. The Saints team, they're just not good enough, and I don't think Tyler Show's enough. Same thing with the Vikings. I don't think Kyler Murray is going to do anything for this team. He didn't for the Cardinals, and so I don't think he's going to do it for Minnesota either. I have him at 4-13. The Falcons 2-15. The Cardinals 2-15. The Falcons. Tua is not good. Tua Tagovailoa is not a good quarterback anymore. And I don't think Michael Penix is going to come in and decide to dominate all of a sudden. Their quarterback room is a mess. Their team is a mess. Watching them in that first game against the Broncos just made them look even worse for me. And I don't think the Falcons are going to be good at all. Get Bijan out of there. I don't know how long it's going to take for them to be good. But the last team, like I said, the Cardinals at 2-15. Again, same thing. They're just not very good. Right? They're just not. Carson Beck, I could see them deciding to bring him in after Jacoby Brissett doesn't have a good start. I could see Carson Beck coming in and starting randomly. Same thing with Gardner Minshew. Like, if they start Carson Beck and they start to win games, maybe we can have a conversation. But they're just so young that I just don't see it happening. And right there is why I love football. I could sit here and debate with people for hours about this stuff. But like I said before, football has always had an interesting relationship with Sundays. Being a football fan and also a Christian means that I more than likely will miss a majority of the early games, depending on how long a church service goes. For fans, Sunday is football day. For the NFL players, Sunday is a work day. And for Christians, Sunday is traditionally when church gathers. So what happens when all three of those things collide? I want to go back to this scenario I described at the beginning of the episode. Imagine you're a rookie in the NFL. You've worked your entire life for this opportunity. Maybe you started playing football when you were 5. Maybe your parents drove you to practices every day. Maybe you spent years training when your friends were out doing other fun things. You sacrificed, right? You've dealt with injuries. You've doubted whether you were good enough. And then somehow, by the grace of God, you made it. Now it's Sunday. Your dream came true. Everything that you worked for and sacrificed for has led to this day. But while you're putting on your shoulder pads, churches across the country are gathering to worship the one who saved them. If you're a Christian, what do you do? And this isn't just an NFL problem, right? Young athletes play tournaments on Sundays. Families travel for sports on weekends. Parents spent weekends at fields and gyms. Some athletes may grow up believing that sports always come first. But before we can even answer whether missing church is a problem, we have to start with the more basic question. What is the point of church in the first place? You have to start with the question, what is the point of church? Some questions you should be asking is, why did God create the church? Why do believers gather? What are we actually missing when we're absent from church? The answer to this comes in many different places in the Bible. But first, let's take a look at, I have my Bible out. It's actually the first episode. I've had my Bible sitting right here. But I'd like to talk about a part in Hebrews. Hebrews chapter 10, verse 24 to 25. Let me pull it up. Hebrews chapter 10, verse 24, 25. And let us consider how to stir up one another to love and good works, not neglecting to meet together, as is the habit of some, but encouraging one another, and all the more you see the day drawing near. This is clear to me. Finding a church full of people who will walk alongside you is key to your walk with Christ, as it says in Hebrews, right? You have to focus on the idea of encouraging one another. It literally says it in verse 24. Stir up one another to love and good works. That is encouraging one another, right? And the love and good works part, it points each other towards loving each other and doing good things. And then in 25, it talks about not neglecting gathering together, right? It's clear and obvious that church is important. This isn't just about sitting in a building checking a box. There's a reason believers are called to gather together. And then the next passage I'd like to look at, which is the entire chapter of Acts 2, which talks about the early church. It talks about its devotion to teaching, to fellowship, to breaking bread, to prayer, to life together. Acts 2 goes deep into these things. It shows what the church provides. It provides fellowship. It provides community. It provides accountability. It provides biblical teaching. It provides corporate worship. It provides communion. It provides encouragement. It provides spiritual growth. It's clear that in this thing, the church is not just a building. The church is the literal body of Christ. So maybe the question isn't simply, did you sit inside of a church on Sunday? Did you sit inside of the building of a church on Sunday? Maybe the question should be, as you intentionally connecting with the body of Christ, are you doing these things? Again, intentionally. Are you intentionally connected with the body of Christ? These are two completely different versions of what people call church. But before we start judging NFL players for not going to church and being intentionally connected, we also have to understand what their lives actually look like. If you look at the NFL and the NFL players specifically, this is a possible Sunday timeline that could happen. Let's say they're on a road game. There's a team hotel that you have to go to the night before if you're away, and then even if you're not away, this middle part is all the same. You have meetings and preparations in the morning. You have a specific wake up schedule time. There's potentially pregame chapel, depending on how early your game is. You have to be involved with transportation to the stadium, which most of the time I would guess is like a team bus of some sort. There's treatment and preparation on various aching pains that are going on with players. Then you have warm-ups and kickoff, the actual game, hours of physical competition, and then you have post-game media, which takes forever, and then you have recovery and treatment and meetings and traveling home after your road games, or even traveling home during your home games, depending on how far you live. A player could literally, I want you guys to think about this, a player could go an entire NFL season without physically attending their home church on a Sunday morning. Is that automatically a spiritual problem? Is it comparable to someone who is voluntarily staying home? What responsibility does the athlete have to remain connected to the Christian community during this week of chaos that leads to a game on Sunday? There's a difference between saying I'd rather play football than go to church and saying my profession requires me to work during the time my church gathers. But the question is that an excuse? Is it okay to have a profession that requires you to work on Sundays? The conversation doesn't just end when someone says, I can't go to church because I work on Sundays. That doesn't just end the conversation. If NFL players can't regularly attend home church during their season, what should Christian athletes and players in the NFL specifically, or even outside of that, actually do? There's ways that Christian NFL players I know that have found ways to, I guess, replace. Maybe replace isn't the right word, but replace church temporarily. There's team chaplains on the team. There's Bible studies that teams host. There's pregame chapel like I talked about before. Sometimes there's prayer circles before, during, after games when things happen. Personal devotion time. There's always personal devotion time to be able to dig into God's Word. There's online sermons you can listen to at any point that you can literally just download, be on the plane, listen to it on Spotify. Like you could do with this podcast, by the way. There's accountability groups. I'm sure there's so many players that hold themselves accountable when it comes to church things. And honestly, I think one of the biggest things is fellowship with Christian teammates. You're fellowshipping with Christian teammates at practice. You're fellowshipping with them on Sundays before a game. Maybe you're talking about church. Maybe you're talking about Christ. Maybe not. These things aren't just completely meaningless, right? It's clear that all of these things have their role within an NFL player who is a Christian's life. A Bible study matters, right? Prayer matters. Personal time with God matters. Fellowship matters. But do any of those things actually replace church? If NFL players are allowed to not go to church, why can't I replace church with those things as well? But this is where we need to have a discussion, right? If watching a sermon is I guess the question is watching a sermon the same as gathering with believers? Is pregame chapel a replacement for the local church? Can personal devotion replace community? Can a Christian athlete remain healthy spiritually without being involved in a local church? The issue isn't whether these things are good or not. Right? It's clear that all of those things that I listed that NFL players do, they're good things. They are. The issue is whether they're being used as a genuine temporary solution or as an excuse to say, I did my version of church today. And this is where it gets difficult because on the one hand, church clearly matters, but on the other hand, football is literally their job. Working is necessary for survival on this earth, and this is where we start to see the biblical tension on this topic. As you can probably tell, there isn't a simple answer to this whole discussion. There's not. Because on the one hand, like I said, church matters, but on the other hand, those other things also matter. Working is not inherently sinful. An NFL player's schedule is not necessarily an automatic rejection of God. Right? Missing one church gathering or even rarely going to church isn't going to determine your salvation. Different churches come from many different convictions, and different Christians come from many different convictions, and church isn't going to determine whether you're going to heaven or not. Going to church isn't going to determine whether you're going to heaven or not. I want to emphasize that. If you look at Colossians 2, there's a clear danger of reducing spirituality to rules and outward appearance. It's clear that those things are easily replaceable, but are they good to replace? Reducing those spirituality things to just an outward appearance is dangerous. Attending church could be something that becomes a legalistic thing. It could be something that could easily, become just attending church without fail because you're trying to keep the check on your record and attendance on the attendance sheet. Someone could easily be attending church every Sunday without fail and still could be far from God in their heart. Someone could be, on the flip side of this, someone could be unable to attend church every single Sunday and still actively be pursuing Christ. Does working on Sunday automatically mean that someone is choosing their work over God, or is the bigger question what happens to their relationship with God outside of those Sunday hours? And maybe this is where the conversation changes completely. Maybe Sunday isn't the issue. Maybe sports itself isn't the problem. Maybe the issue isn't Sunday itself. Maybe sports are an idol. What if someone goes to church every Sunday, but sports still has more control over their life than God does? What comes first in your life? What controls your decisions? What are you unwilling to give up? This could be sports, or it could be money, or it could be fame, or it could be sleep, or it could be ego, or it could be literally anything that causes you not to go to church. Those things could control you more than God does when it comes to a church setting. Here's the question I want to ask. What are you unwilling to give up if God commanded you to? Would you quit the sport you love if God commanded you to? Would you break up with that person if God commanded you to? Would you give away all your money if God commanded you to? Would you give away all the luxury that you have if God commanded you? Would you quit playing video games if God commanded you? Would you be willing to sacrifice everything in this life if God commanded you? Would you choose Christ over football, over video games, over that person you look up to, over your career, over your wealth, over your friends, over your girlfriend or boyfriend, over your physical appearance, over your lustful desires, over music, over movies, over politics, over influencers, over your children, over your emotions, over your achievements, over your grades, over your dreams, over your goals and aspirations, over social media validation, and most of all, would you choose Christ over yourself? Have you reached a point where church is something you attend when those things don't get in the way? Those idols don't get in the way. Church can so easily become something that we try to fit in our schedules. This Sunday dilemma isn't about football versus a church service. It's about what has our heart. It's about what you're giving your life to. God isn't keeping attendance like a teacher checking a roll sheet, right? This is where I land on this discussion. I don't believe God is sitting in heaven with an attendance sheet, checking whether or not you physically sit in a church building or listen to a sermon online or listen to a podcast like this podcast or made a podcast like I'm making a podcast about Christianity. or reading your Bible on Sundays, or praying for people on Sundays, or anything like that. I don't believe your church attendance equals your salvation or equals how Christian you are. But I do believe that God designed believers to live in community, to be under biblical teaching, to worship together, to be accountable to hold each other accountable, to be connected to the body of Christ. If your career constantly keeps you away from that, I think it's worth asking the question of what you're losing spiritually. Not because going to church saves you, not because, going to church is just looks good and is a good on the outside, but because we were never designed to do this whole Christian thing alone. So let's get to the practical questions. Is live stream church good enough? I think the question isn't whether it's good enough. I think the question is actually, is watching church the same as participating in church? And I would argue it's not. Watching church online isn't inherently bad, and it actually is a very cool thing to be able to stay connected with the church through a live stream type thing. But that doesn't mean you're actually in church. If live streaming church is an excuse to stay home and have it be more comfortable and convenient, then there's a problem that needs to be figured out. If Sundays are occupied during the season, should athletes intentionally connect to a church during the offseason? Right? The question of should Christian athletes just prioritize an offseason church and leave it at that? If Sundays just don't work, how can you pursue a church community throughout the year? Churches have small groups, churches have youth groups, churches have other options to be able to fit your schedule. If one church has a schedule that doesn't fit yours, find a different one. Don't just give up. Find a different one that gives you a better chance to make it. Put in the effort to figure out another way to be able to attend church as often as you can. My question to you and my question to myself as well is, would you make the same sacrifice? Would I make the same sacrifice? If your dream job required you to work every Sunday, your dream job, we're talking the job you've been waiting for to have forever. If it required you to work every single Sunday and not be able to attend church, would you take it? This is a question you should think about because it will reveal what are the idols in your life. For me, I struggle to answer this question, right? I'm someone who wants to have a career field in sports, and I know weekends have lots of sports events. It's a question I'm probably going to have to face at some point in my life. And again, like I'm saying, these questions I'm asking to myself as well as to the audience out there. Where do we draw the line? This is the last question I have. Where do we draw the line between a spiritual calling and just a career? Can a career be a part of God's calling? And I think absolutely. And it's important to remember that every field of jobs needs Christian in them because everybody needs Jesus, and we need people to be planted at every point, in everything to be able to share the gospel. God intentionally places us in those situations in order to have his love being spread all the time, at all times. But an opportunity doesn't automatically mean God wants you to take it. It also doesn't mean you should turn down every offer you ever get that makes you miss a couple Sundays. The situation overall is important, and you need to consider all things before you just make a drastic decision. Every single one of these questions is not an easy one to answer, right? But I do think there is one thing that should be clear. Church should be a main priority in the life of a Christian. If church isn't a top priority, then there's a problem. If church is below sports, then there's a problem. If sports or your job has become a higher priority than God himself, obviously there's a problem. Going to church will not grant you salvation, but it will keep you in community. It will hold you accountable, and it will allow you to sit under biblical teaching like we are designed to be sitting under. There are alternatives for church. There are. But you shouldn't be actively seeking those things and instead actively seek ways to have a replacement for other parts in your life. So if you're in club sports and all the time, you're just missing Sunday left and right, maybe you should start to consider other options. Other leagues that don't have things on Sundays, other things that don't force you to miss church and miss your spiritual time with God. Maybe that is the change that you need to make. You need to find ways to replace those other parts of your life, not replace God. So tell me, what is your priority? Are you prioritizing God in church? Are you making excuses for why you can't attend? The Sunday dilemma doesn't have a simple solution. Christian NFL players who miss church aren't less faithful than those who attend church every Sunday without fail. If you're a Christian and you have to work on Sundays, I don't think you're automatically choosing your career over God. And I definitely don't think going to church every Sunday is going to give you a free pass to heaven. But I do believe this. God should never become the thing that we try to fit around everything else. Sports shouldn't have that place. Careers shouldn't have that place. Money shouldn't have that place. Nothing should. The Sunday dilemma isn't about attending church versus not attending church. It's about figuring out what actually has your heart. So what are your priorities? This is Clayball. I'll see you next time. Thanks.